Hi moms and dads, here is a second video on subtraction. In Investigations, which is the math program that we use, you're going to find a lot of the problems are shown written across. So I'm going to start with that one first. So the first one is 43 minus 12. The first strategy that I do teach them is to draw tens and ones, and they do know that when they're subtracting, they're removing. And that's a good question to ask your child when they're working with word problems or any of the other work that we do. Are they combining, which is like adding? Are they removing something, which is subtraction? Are they comparing? Do they want to know which one's bigger or smaller? That's also subtraction. So those are just some little questions that you can ask that might help. So they know with 43, so they know to draw their tens and ones. 10, 20, 30, 40, 41, 42, 43. And then by now they know that this one here is not a 1, it's really a 10. So they can cross off a 10. And they know this 2 is 2 1s, so they can cross off 2 1s. And then they count what's left. 10, 20, 30, 31. This way is most similar to the carrying and borrowing that we learned. Instead of doing it in their head, it's on paper. And the new math, it's all about the proof. It's all about showing how they got their answer. So even though some of them can maybe do this in their head, I encourage them to give me some type of proof. So that's the easiest way to do it. The next step is that they know that this 4 isn't really a 4, it's really a 40. And this 1 isn't really a 1, it's a 10. So it's 40 minus 10, which equals 30. And then they have their 3 and their 2, which they know are their 1s. So that's 3 minus 2, and that equals 1, which gives them 31. So they got the same answer, it's just two different ways. Another way that they can do this is to keep the 43 all together. So they would go 43 minus 10. And we've talked about the hundreds board. When you're working with 10, you're just going up or down the same column. So you could ask them to see the hundreds board in your head. Maybe even get the hundreds board. I could send a copy home if you would find that helpful, or they're right online that you could print one out. So they would know 43 minus 10. I go above it on my hundreds chart. That's going to be 33. And then they know they've used their 1. Sometimes it helps to check it off or cross it off, but I recommend checking it off. And then they know they have their 2 left, so that is 33 minus 2, which equals 31. Again, getting the same answer, but giving me proof. And this is a kind of problem where there's no regrouping. There wouldn't have been any borrowing or carrying or anything like that. The next set of problems are a little bit trickier because we're expecting them to borrow, and they do, but they do it in a slightly different way. And we have a mantra for that. It sounds a little silly, but it works really well. So if I were to give them the problem 43 again, but this time I'm going to subtract 17. And again, I'm working across the way they would see it in Investigations. All of these strategies also work up and down, and I'll show you a couple of those later on. So I have my 43. Again, our fallback strategy is when in doubt, and even say that to your kid when they're confused. Say, when in doubt, they'll probably say, draw tens and ones. So they would draw their 43, 10, 20, 30, 40, 41, 42, 43. So they know my 17 again, that's really a 10, so they cross out a 10. And then they look at their 7, and then they realize, I don't have enough. So we say, I'm taking 1 10 And if you even say it, they're going to repeat it back to you. I'm taking 110 and I'm trading it for 10 ones. And this is very similar to the borrowing that we did. Instead of doing all the work up here, it's down here. They also know to cross off this 10. They no longer have it. They've traded it for 10 ones. So they had 10 and the 3 over here, that gives them 13, which allows them to cross off the 7 that they need. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Which now gives them 10, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26. And my answer is 26. If they're struggling, this is where they should go back to, and I do encourage my class that if they're confused, it's not working today, to go back here. It's a safe place, and they're really good at it. They may forget, they may count their ones wrong, but they understand the process. The next way is where we're going to be taking the number apart again. I call it deconstructing numbers, taking numbers apart. And those are that's language that they may be using with you also. So again, we go back to our 43 minus 17. So again, I have this again, they know it's not a 4, they know that it's 40 minus 10, which equals 30. Then they have their ones. This is where it gets tricky for us because we never dealt with negative numbers in 2nd grade. So I have 3 minus 7. And I asked them, you have 3, do you have enough to give me 7? And you might even have to hold up 3 fingers. You might have to get 3 pencils, 3 crayons, something to show them that they don't have enough. And then they'll usually say, nope, I don't have enough. And I say, okay, we're going to count backwards. So I have 3, I have 2, 1, 0, -1, -2, -3, -4. And we talk about with that -4 is that you owe me. It's kind of like I relate it to credit cards where you go to the store, you buy with a credit card, and you pay them later. Or it's a check where you're giving them the check now, the credit card now, and they get the money from your bank later. That's a really good connection for them. They understand that. So then I have my 30 minus 4, and they count backwards and they get 26. If you find the negative numbers confusing, I would keep the 43 whole the next way that I'm going to show you. So I have my 43, and I'm going to subtract 10. Again, going back to that hundreds board, I'm moving up and down vertically. So if they know the 43 minus 10 is going to be 33, then they're going to have 33 minus 7, and they just need to subtract, just counting backwards. So they go 33. I even tell them, put the number in your head. Some of them might draw dashes to help them count backwards. Some might make a number line. But the human calculator is fine. They don't have to hide that from me. They do internalize it eventually. So I have 33, 32, 31, 30, 28, 29, 28. So they have their 33, and then they're going to count backwards 7. So I have 33, 32, 31, 30, 29, 28, 27, 26. Again, getting the same answer. They also can do the problems up and down. You're starting to see that more in homework, but a lot of the times with the tests and the equations, they're going to see it both ways. So if we were to do these problems going up and down, let's do 54 minus 11. Again, when in doubt, draw tens and ones. So 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. 1, 2, 3, 4. They know to cross off a 10. They know to cross off 1 1, and then that leaves me 4 10s and 3 1s. If they go up and down, I do encourage them to draw the line. It's going to keep them organized into their 1s, 10s, and 100s. So that's the way with the 10s, with drawing 10s and 1s. The next way is that breaking apart. We did horizontally before. Now we're just going to do it vertical. So I have 50 minus 10, which is 40. And I have 4 minus 1, which is 3. This is where you need the line. It helps them keep it organized and lined up in the correct column, which gives me 43. Some kids like this because it's a little bit faster, but it's still giving the proof that they need to show. But if I change that 11 to an 8. Again, when in doubt, draw 10s and 1s. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 51, 52, 53, 54. They realize that they can cross off 1 10. But they see, I have 4 1s, but I need to give you 8. So again, we go back to that little mantra. I'm taking 1 10, and I'm trading it, making sure you cross this off, trading it for 10 1s. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And here's that borrowing that we did. And just instead of crossing all the numbers off up here, they're just doing it on the side so that they see why it's happening. And now I can cross off my 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Which leaves me with my 6 1s. Forgot to draw my line back down. And my 3 10s, giving me 36. What's nice about this method is that it eliminates having to do all that crossing out. Some kids just really found that confusing. Now the breaking the number apart, you're going to find some kids are just going to write it horizontally down here the same way they did with the problem going across. They just like that method. Some kids do prefer to move up and down. So here I have my 54 minus 18. So I'm going to go 50 minus 10, which is 40. And then my 4 minus 8. And if you remember, some kids just kind of switch that already, and they would just go 8 minus 4 and put a 4 down here, but then they would get 44. They didn't understand that that 4 wasn't what they really had, is that they owed them 4 more. So here's where that negative numbers really come into play. And I do tell them this is the part that scares mom and dad. So I have my 4 minus 8, and I go 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, negative 4. But they know that I owe you, so it's a negative 4, which is a subtraction. So I've got my 40 minus 4. They count backwards, and that gives me the 36. This way, they really need to understand their place value. They need to understand their 10s and 1s. They need to understand their number line, and they need to have a good handle on their negative numbers. Most of them can count backwards and forwards using positive and negative numbers. Most kids understand negative means I owe you, I don't have it. But if they're not ready to go here, go back to those 10s and 1s. That's really the best place to go. So hopefully this helped. Once we get into 3-digit, it's the same thing. I'm just adding another column, working with hundreds. But it's the same strategies, the same skills, just working with a couple extra zeros. So hopefully this helped, and I'll see you next time.